And that's a pretty substantive amendment. I would suggest that you bring it in the form.
It was intended as an amendment, not as a friendly amendment.
Okay, and I would second it.
And Mayor, I'd like to.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Besides that, we would be using all our bonding capacity, and I fully realize that we don't have to do that just because we can, but we've spent a lot of time hearing a lot of information, not only from our staff, but also from the community about the tremendous need. When we went out for bonds last November, we went out for $78.3 million. Taking away the $10 million that we already spent leaves us at 68.3, roughly the 65 million that we're currently putting on the table. So I'm just making the case that we are being consistent with what we intended to do last November.
Okay, amendment on the table to change the 65 million to 55 million. Further discussion? Councilmember Tola.
Yeah, I wanted to also respond to the point about capacity for spending. I think that we've seen, in terms of the number of applications that our housing and community development department received, that it really well exceeds $10 million in spending. And we've heard repeated requests for more money for the housing repair program and many of the other very worthy programs that could benefit from bond funding. So I would say that maybe our housing staff would like to comment on this. I do believe that we will have the capacity to spend that. Unfortunately, really making a dent in homelessness and housing affordability is going to require a lot more than $55 million.
Mayor, if I could comment?
Councilmember Spelman.
If in any given year we have the capacity, the productive capacity to be able to spend more than 10 million because we have applications available or because more housing tax credit applications hit than we usually have, then we could spend cash as we did this year. I think that would be, in addition to cash, we do have the Housing Trust Fund available as I've outlined in the first row of this spreadsheet. So we're going to have a little bit more money on the Housing Trust Fund. We could always take some more money off of out of cash and spend that as we did this year. And I think if the capacity is available, we can spend it. If the capacity is not available, what this only does is commits us to what it is we know in advance we'll be able to spend.
I think there's a question for staff.
Perhaps staff would want to comment on that. I would be interested in hearing your perspective. It's also my understanding that our bond funding may go to support tax credit projects, but certainly it's not limited to that. So I wonder, Ms. Spencer, if you could just talk about that bond fund, what those bond funds could support in terms of the kinds of programs that they have in the past, and whether there is room to spend this amount in a reasonable amount of time. I think it was one of the very few bond programs that actually ran through all its money more quickly than did the other bond programs.
Yes, ma'am. Betsy Spencer, Director of Neighborhood Housing and Community Development. So I'll try to answer several different questions. First, to capacity, we actually spend about $14 million per year with all of our funding together. The GO bonds has been roughly $10 million a year because of the $55 million for 5 or 6 years. But we actually, with the aggregate money of our other federal funds and stuff, we usually spend about $14 million total in capital expenditures. We did have 1 year where we actually expended $17 million of the general obligation bond fund or committed it because we had 3 tax credit projects all for the city of Austin, which is unusual. But the tax credit allocation has a lot more to do with the region and the amount of credits that we receive as a region, not so much the capacity of nonprofits. We often have about 7 to 10 very competitive applications that are submitted each year. And I would argue that most of those are actually very worthy and viable projects, but the region only receives so much allocation each year. Therefore, we usually only fund or finance 2 to 3 projects in our region. And our region does include other cities, Levander and some other cities that compete. So when it comes to capacity, as an overall, I believe we've demonstrated an ability to commit and expend about $50 million per year. That's for a variety of programs. It isn't just the tax credits, it isn't just for rental housing. It includes the home repair program, and also includes acquisition and development. We also obviously have the Portland Supportive Housing Initiative, which is an exceptionally important program. Often is it's a more significant capital contribution on our end. It costs more. And so we have that. We have preservation as another priority. We have some big projects coming up with potential. The RBJ project is a big project that will require or could require a fair amount of contribution from the city and a lot of different funding sources. So that's a long-winded way of saying I do believe we have the ability to extend funds in a very timely manner when given the opportunity.
Councilor Garson.
Councilmember Spellman, I want to thank you for your comments because it's something that I wrestled with quite a bit too. It makes sense for us to look at using the number of 65 or to try and calibrate it off the 55 that we passed before. And I guess I want to make a couple of comments in that regard. Number one, with regard to capacity. If this goes on at 65 and it's approved, that means we have the opportunity to do $65 million in bond for affordable housing. It doesn't mean we have to. So that if we find that we just don't have the projects, we're not going to go out and just spend the money. We're just not going to use the funds. We're not going to go with the bond. So that issue doesn't bother me very much. And I think it's important to keep in mind that there is a tremendous need that's been recognized by the bond committee. If everyone recalls the whole process that we went through, we had some good numbers to remind me. The Affordable Housing Subcommittee of the Bond Advisory Committee originally recommended $110 million to be for affordable housing. It eventually came to us at 100.5, and then in the smaller package, it turned out to be 76.8, which is what had gone on the first time. I also referenced the fact that our staff and all the discussions we've had about policies and amounts and how we might fund this, we're recommending 10 to 12 million a year. So I feel like the 65 fits comfortably in that. You brought up the issue, Councilmember Spellman brought up the issue of the appearance of the number to the voters, and I agree we have to pay attention to that. But my sense in talking to the voters and talking to people is people recognize the need. There needs to be a tremendous need for affordable housing. People recognize the pressure that our housing is under with the tremendous growth. And we need to have a very robust dialogue, assuming this passes, to go on the ballot in the coming months and have that discussion. And because there's so much need, because I feel so comfortable with the 65 that we can spend it productively, I will be supporting the 65.
Those in favor of Councilman Spellman's amendment say aye. Opposed say no.
No.
So that fails on a vote of 2 to 5.
Yes.
You're in favor of the 55? Yes. So Councilmember Riley, myself, and Councilmember Spellman voted for the motion. So that motion fails and brings us to the main motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Passed on a vote of 7-0. So now we can address the second ordinance, which is setting the election of Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we approve the ordinance calling a special election to be held November 5th, 2013 to authorize the issuance of general obligation bonds as stated in the companion ordinance establishing the ballot language.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second by Councilor Tobo? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
Passed on a vote of 7-0. Both of those on alternate readings. Go to item 27. Number of speakers signed up. David speakers.
Bet I'm on
Mark
there.
Presley.
Yep.
donating time and Brad Parsons here. All right, Brad's here, James Goosey. Goosey or Gowsey? Russell Doyle? Russell Doyle. Okay. Jeff Canton? Jeff? All right, so you have up to 9 minutes.
Wait a minute, one more donating.
Are you signed up? All right, so you have 12 minutes, and you are, I got your name right now.
Mayor
Ruby.
Olin. Mayor.
Oh, the other, Ray Network. She's donating time also. So you have 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Dr. Laura Presley, an Austin resident, business owner, and have been in the technology field for over 17 years here in Austin. And I understand very well this technology, the smart meter technology that's being proposed in this contract that's being proposed. I have a little bit of a PowerPoint that I want to kind of bring everybody up to speed on some issues with smart meters and kind of what the trends are nationally. This is a excerpt from a from a PDF file that Austin Energy sent to me about 8 or 9 months ago. I was asking about the smart meter frequencies that are emitted by our the smart meters on our homes and on our multifamily units here in Austin. You can see in the frequency column, 900 megahertz and 2400 megahertz are the two bands of frequencies that are emitted. The 900 megahertz is radio frequency, and the 2.4 gigahertz, which is at 2400 megahertz, is a microwave frequency. It's exactly the same frequency our microwave ovens use, just lower power. Okay, next. That's me. Okay. Smart meters operate in two different mechanisms that affect what I would say the well-being of homeowners where the smart meter is installed. One way is that, of course, we just talked about this radiation, the light waves and the radiation from these meters, 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. But there's a second mechanism that these meters induce in your home, and it's called dirty electricity. I don't know how familiar council members are with that term. There's a book out there that is a phenomenal read. It's called Dirty Electricity. It's by Dr. Sam Milham. He's a physician and epidemiologist. He's about 80 years old right now. He's been doing this for about 40 years, and he has shown that the voltage and electrical noise that gets transmitted through our circuitry of our home with these smart meters, your smart meters pulse. There's a huge amount of pulsing that happens. Mine at my house pulses about every 25 seconds. 3,000 times a day, these smart meters pulse. And with that, they send a huge amount of electrical noise through our circuitry in our homes. And it's termed dirty electricity because it puts a noise signal on top of the 60 hertz alternating current signal that's coming from the electric company. So those are the two mechanisms. Both of these mechanisms have been shown to cause some health issues. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So those are the two mechanisms, a light mechanism and an electrical noise mechanism. This is the national trends in smart meter regulations across the country. The states in orange have state public utility commissions that are adopting regulations to make it easier for customers to opt out, which means put back the analog meter on our homes and not so much these radiative pulsing meters. There's several states in green that had state legislation either pending in the House or Senate. This was reported by the Boston Globe back this summer. Texas, the Public Utility Commission, has agreed to do an opt-out program for Texas, and that will come probably in the next year and a half or so. And you can see other states. Vermont has an opt-out program. It's a no-fee opt-out. Hawaii has opt-out. Okay, and there have been some court rulings on smart meter technology. I'm going to talk a little bit about the lawsuits that have been won across the country. In California, there have been health cases that have been won. In Hawaii, privacy and constitutional violation issues. In Hawaii, discrimination issues. In Maine, health and safety, privacy, property rights, constitutional violations. And then also in Portland, health issues, privacy and safety issues with the smart meter technology. This is what's going on right now. You have states allowing opt-out, and you have legal suits that have been won because of issues. I want to show you a little bit about the opt-out program in California. Pacific Gas and Electric has an opt-out program where they charge $75 to put your analog meter back on your house, the one we used to have back in 2000, and then they charge $10 a month for somebody to come out and monitor that for your usage. And this is a similar program that Austin Energy has been proposed. It's proposed in the 2013-2014 fee structure. So an opt-out program is coming, and I really applaud the leadership of Austin Energy. Larry Weiss and his staff have pushed this, and I'm very impressed with the leadership of Austin Energy on this. This is a report. So where are the health studies? Where are the issues, where's the peer-reviewed science with regard to the health issues? This report came out last year. We didn't have this report 5 and 10 years ago. This is a summary of all the research. Councilmember Spillman, I see you kind of grimacing there. Thank you. This came out in December 2012, and it is actually a treatise, a study of all of the health research with, as a function of power density. As you increase the power density, more health effects happen. And this is a great summary. It's 1,400 pages long, and there's a great color chart that shows power density and health effects. Researcher in Europe was published. It's a really great summary. And I'm going to give a little, since I have 12 minutes, I'm going to give a little bit of a personal story. I personally have health issues with my smart meter on my home. My husband and I, for the last several years, have noticed that when we're in bed and the other partner is asleep, that the partner twitches, kind of jerks. And we were kind of joke with each other about this. And it got so bad that when I would try to lay down for a nap, I could feel kind of little small vibrations in my face. And we counted the time between these twitches and this kind of bodies kind of jerking, and it was 25 seconds. Very consistently, every 25 seconds, we would kind of kick our legs involuntarily. I talked with Austin Energy about this, talked with Larry Weiss, and said, you know what? We went and measured our meter with a little frequency and power analyzer, and my meter was pulsing every 25 seconds. So Larry said, that's interesting. Let's have someone come out to your house. Let's turn the radio emitter off and see how you feel. The twitching stopped. Root cause. Dead on. From an engineering standpoint, that's a root cause identification and verification. So based on that, they've looked at the opt-out program, and they've proposed a fee of $75 and $10 came out to read for those people that are sensitive. And I'm going to tell you, wireless technology is no different than alcohol. Only so much of it can people take before they're impaired. And every person is going to be different with regard to what they can stand with regard to this radiation level. So with regard to that, let's move forward a little bit to this $60 million contract. Let's look at this contract and what does it cover? You've seen what the trends are from the national, you can take it off. From the national standpoint, what do you have a line-by-line item description of what the $60 million is for? I think that's been asked by several people. It's been asked at the last council meeting. It was asked at the EUC, and I haven't seen it in the backup material. What is the return on investment for residential customers? What's the dollar per year savings that's expected for residential customers? I haven't seen that.
Right.
And to me, what is the urgency of this contract and expanding our smart meter program? What really is the urgency? This contract goes out, the current one goes out, I think, to 2017, and this one extends it out to 2022. What really is that urgency to do that? From the testimony of Austin Energy, what we do know about the contract is that It's going to have a software upgrade that allows two-way communication. It's going to enable almost minute-by-minute electricity usage. It's going to enable query to our appliances for what they're doing. And it's going to enable a rate structure for peak and non-peak rates, which translates to higher rates for peak usage. That's the big deal. And I think the main advantage that's been communicated is to encourage Austinites to use electricity on off-peak times. But I'd like to challenge that a little bit. You know, you think about, when do we mostly use electricity? When the AC's on, when we're getting ready for work and school? And I just do not see those as being options. You know, I don't know if the Texas sun can please just shine when we're in off-peak. I wish it would do that. You know, your AC's on, that's the biggest contributor to your electric bill, period. And that's not something you can control, how hot it is outside. You know, I think there are a lot more concerns about this upgrade. And you've got health issues, you have increased radiation emissions these two-way communications are going to cause. You have privacy issues, we just saw the lawsuits out there concerning this may put us at risk for something like that. There are security issues, and bottom line, there's a lot more needs in our community than this. This is kind of a, wouldn't it be great to have? It's not a must-have. And Councilmember Spellman, I love when you ask those questions. Is this a must-have? This one's not a must-have right now. I'd like you guys to table this and take it back up at some point, see how the opt-out program goes, see if we really need this down the road. And I just want to thank you for your attention to this, and you guys have brought up a lot of good questions, and I appreciate it. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Shonda Stark.
Hello, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Shonda Stark. I'm an Austin resident, and this is my first time to speak, so I am here on behalf of this agenda. And I'm here just to voice my concerns as a citizen for this $60 million program. I am concerned about the dollars being spent, and I'm concerned about $60 million being spent on a program that could put the health of the citizens and privacy of the citizens in jeopardy. And I'm just here to say, as a taxpaying citizen, I do not support this. That's it.
Thank you, Shonda. You're a Chico? You're a Chico?
I just wanted to say that I do not want taxpayer money going for this. $65 million can be spent in so many different ways. And what we just saw with the affordable housing, to me, there's so many things that are more important. I live in affordable housing, and I've had to move out of my apartment because the smart meters have been making me ill. And I've been out for 5 months living with friends. So the thought of spending $65 million to make these, to support this, is insanity to me. And that's not where I want my money going. So that's it.
Paul Norris.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, my name is Paul Norris, and I'm an Austin native. On Lake Cross Bank, it says we're from here, and they're really from San Antonio. I'm from here. Thank you for letting me speak to you today. I'm opposed to this item for budgetary reasons. We just had a large rate increase for the utility. This is a major budget item, $60 million. It will have a definite impact on rates. I had the privilege of serving on the Electric Utility Commission for 4.5 years back in the 80s. We never were presented with an item like this that was so vague and had no line item detail. Approval of this is premature, seriously premature. I suggest that you strongly consider deferring action until you have a lot more detail. You just went through a very thorough exercise on a $60 million airport contract. Don't do any less here. This does not appear to be in the best interest of the Austin ratepayer at this time. Please don't rubber stamp this item. Thank you.
Gregory East, Mr. Gregory East.
Thank you, council people. I just wanted to say that everybody's talking about up here about health effects of smart meters. It might seem like maybe it's a little overblown, but it's not. And as for me, like someone who has had insomnia off and on, like most of my life, I recently moved into a house that has smart meters. And one smart meter, but it used to be something I might have 3, 4, 5 times a year. Now it's something I have all the time, like 3, 4, 5 days a week. I've been here. I got up yesterday and I tried to go to sleep, and I know it's that meter because I've been reading all about it, and I've been here all day. And I just want to say that the contempt and look on Living Will's face when 27 was brought up and he saw everyone here and he just takes off like that. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Like, we don't get to choose not to pay a salary. You gotta be here right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Barbara Day, are you here? Okay, Betty Luker, are you here? Yes, and James Ritter, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll yield my time to everything's pretty good.
Carol, you have a total of 12 minutes, and you have other people willing to give you time if you need it.
Oh my goodness, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is Carol Pajitsky, and I am the Executive Director of Texas Roads, which stands for Ratepayers Organization to Save Energy. I spoke to you about this issue at the last council meeting, and I'm happy to be back to speak about it again this week. Now, I have had quite a bit of experience with smart meters and smart meter issues. I was a representative to the Advanced Metering Working Group at the Public Utility Commission that designed the system that's in place in the deregulated service areas. I also served as a consultant to the Maine Office of Public Utility Advocate on their opt-out provision. And I think you have a unique opportunity here as a council to nip some issues in the bud that are out of control in many areas. And I hope that you will take the opportunity that you have now to study this more thoroughly, but still provide some options to people who do want smart meters now. I think we do have a question as to whether or not this contract for $60 million, is this the beginning, is this the end? I mean, what else does this process involve? I do have a copy of materials that were provided to you by Austin Energy on this issue, and I am intrigued by page 2 of 6, which says that Austin Energy procures the advanced meters that are utilized for this AMA product under separate contracts using a different funding source. So we've got this $60 million for AMI services, then somewhere else there is a piece that has to do with the cost of meters, and now it's making me wonder if there are yet some other pieces to this puzzle too, and I think it is appropriate that there be a very comprehensive metering plan in place that identifies all the costs that are going to come up over the next several years. At this point, we don't really know how many customers actually need advanced meters. There are some people who may want them. I don't think that it's an overwhelming number of customers, especially in the residential sector. I know I myself have no need for an advanced meter because I don't do anything fancy with my electricity. For residential customers, it may be appropriate for people who have photovoltaic rooftop panels or some other form of distributed generation. It may do a better job of measuring what goes in and out of the grid, and it may be helpful for billing purposes. And if that's the case, an advanced meter should be a part of the package of installing PV panels on your house, and it can be taken care of that way. I'm really very much in favor of, at this point, making advanced meters an opt-in service for all customers. And for those customers to pay for that advanced meter through what we call a capital recovery fee on their bill, which is basically a long-term amortization of the equipment. I don't see any reason right now for making these huge investments that everybody has to pay for and only a few people will actually benefit from them. Now, another matter that I think should be looked at on this is, do we really need contractors to do this work? Or should these be the jobs that are done by Austin Energy employees? Now, I do know that some of the larger companies in the state, and I have some testimony in my office that was submitted by Encore Electric Delivery to the Public Utility Commission that explains some reasons why they had cut back on contracting out their advanced metering services and why they have chosen to develop some of their own products instead of using proprietary products as this one does.
Right.
That is another element of this whole system that doesn't seem to have been looked at here, and I think it should be, to see if there are more reliable ways that we can get services by using employees instead of outside contractors, especially on this long-term basis. So there are a lot of issues involved with smart meters. Number one, are they worth the investment? That's something that I don't believe that this material that you've been provided provides. If you look at page 3, there's a list of capabilities that the advanced meters have. And when I read this list of capabilities, it appears to me that these are not benefits to the customer. These are benefits to Austin Energy, and I'm not sure how great those benefits are. Reduced truck rolls and reduced carbon dioxide is one of them. Now, I happen to think that remote meter reading is a good idea. I don't like the idea of trucks unnecessarily driving around town to read meters when we can do it some other way. However, I know that there is a contractor that Austin Energy uses to read meters that is also the meter reader for the water utility. So while we as consumers can pay for this fancy meter reading system at the electric utility, we're still going to be paying that contractor to roll the truck to read the water meters. So to me, as a consumer, that says, my costs are going up. I get fancy service on one end, and, basic service on the other. Whereas if there was some plan in place where we could eliminate the truck completely, then perhaps the automated meter reading would be of benefit to us as consumers. I think there are a lot of questions that need to be asked. There are questions of cybersecurity. It is a fact that these systems can be hacked just like anything else that's digital and that's a computer system, and you have to be very careful. So there are some issues that have to be looked at here. There were issues that we had to address at the state level, some of which are still ongoing, about who is entitled to have access to this information. I mean, there were people out there who wanted everybody's information about their meter attributes and their energy usage to be posted on a public website so that contractors could have access to it. So there are a lot of really big questions here that need to be answered, not so much for the sake of like Austin Energy's operations, but for we, the consumers of Austin Energy, that will be affected by these systems as they go into place. And then, of course, there are health concerns that have been brought up to you earlier. And these can take, a lot of time, and there is controversy over health concerns. Now, I think that if someone says that the meter that is installed in their home is making them ill, that they shouldn't have to have that meter in their home,
Right.
period. Afraid of flying. We do not make them get into an airplane to go
Right.
someplace. There are people who don't eat meat because they think that it's bad for them. And, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we don't force them to eat meat.
Right.
And I don't see why, if someone has a concern about the effects of a smart meter on their health, as far as I'm concerned, they just shouldn't have to have one in their home. Now, the great thing is that everybody doesn't have smart meters yet, so you are in a position where you can give people the option of opting in to this system. And I think my recommendation to you would be to leave the remaining 4 years of the contract that's already in place, and use this as a time to really look at the future and decide what is the best course of action and the most economical options that are available for metering systems here in the city. I also have to I will end this in a minute, but I have to bring up the point that the very last words of this memo that we were sent on page 6 of 6 refers to prepaid offerings without added costs. And this is something that is a very popular use of prepaid meters in other parts of the state right now, where customers have to pay in advance. Their service is offered under a different set of customer protection rules, which are more lenient than the ones that are in effect for other customers who have standard service. And I would like to make the statement right now that we should not be installing advanced meters for the purpose of creating a second class of citizens on the system who just don't have the same services and the same rights as everybody else. And that concludes my testimony.
Councilmember Morrison. Carol, hold on, I think Councilmember Morrison has a question for you.
It did prompt several questions. Councilmember Cho, were you going to ask some questions? Because I'd be glad to follow yours.
Councilmember Tobo?
Thanks, I appreciate that. I just had a quick one. I missed your last point about creating a second class of citizens. Would you mind just clarifying that last point?
Prepaid electric service is interesting. It is a setup where the customer has to pay in advance to get electricity, And then because of the attributes of the advanced metering systems and other systems that support it, the electricity provider is able to do what they call ping customers' meters. In fact, in the deregulated areas of the state, an electric provider can ping up to 10,000 meters at a time at any point in the day. And at that point, when the meter is pinged, the retailer gets data about how much electricity that person has used, like up to this point in time, and they, like have these systems where they can determine how much money is left on the person's account. Okay, so it's it's like a phone card, except not, different. But the concept is you prepay, and when your account runs out of money, your service gets disconnected. And a lot of people call it the self-termination plan, where instead of the utility like sending you advance notice and sending somebody out to disconnect your service, you basically, disconnect yourself because you let your account run out of money. And there are issues that are associated with that. Some of these providers like charge people a fee whenever they pay on their account. So it's just it's a terrible thing. It's second-class service.
Hi, Councilman Morrison. I actually have a few questions for staff, which I would hope I could ask now because they're directly tied to the points that Carol made.
Absolutely, Councilman Morrison.
I wouldn't go far, Carol.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Neely, Chief Operating Officer, Boston Energy.
For being with us. I wonder if you can help us with the answers to a few of the issues that she brought up. And the ones that I sort of recorded that I think got laid on the table that would be helpful in our discussion. Do we have a comprehensive metering plan? She mentioned, that there are other pieces of it that we'll be having to buy meters and all. Do we have one that really lays it out for the coming years?
We do have a comprehensive plan. And if you recall, back in 2007, we actually brought forward and received, forward for our works to actually automate all the meters. 100% of Austin Energy's meters today are running through this network. You do not have analog meters anyplace in the system. There's some exceptions, but they are not in the system today. And as pointed out by one of our speakers, we have moved forward ahead of the PUC to look to offer an opt-out program for those customers who feel they do need an analog meter for some reason. That's in the budget package that you have, and we hope to be able to implement that in November of this year.
Great, and so in the reference to perhaps needing more meters, is that just for new residences or is there another?
Yes, we purchase new meters for new customers. So if somebody builds a new house, a new apartment, a new place of business, and we need to continue supplying those automated meters. We do have in our system a mix. We have the majority of our meters on the two-way network capable of two-way operations. But the original meters installed back in 2002 are one-way, and those exist primarily at apartment complexes and other high transition types of locations, and they were specifically selected a lot in the OT area where we saw a lot of continuing moving out and moving in. So those have the potential to be upgraded if we choose to.
So just down to basics, what we're talking about in this contract is we already have a contract with these folks. This is a new contract that would replace the current contract with upgraded two-way services.
With an upgraded operating system. And currently we have a small implementation of that operating system installed such that we can do the smart grid and the research that we are doing in conjunction with the Con Street project. That is the location where we've got this newer system installed, and we see that it brings us benefits. It's the same system that is installed and operated by Encore. Another speaker mentioned Encore does it differently. Encore uses exactly the system that we would like to get by extending this contract and the options for you today. And so they're able to do some more of those advanced services that we can't do with our current system. They, instead of having a service agreement with Landis+Gyr, purchased the proprietary radios and the software, and they manage that in-house. So they do have a cost of people and staff in place and servers to run that. We, when we entered into this contract in 2002, opted to enter into it as a service agreement so that we didn't have to staff that, we didn't have to maintain that network, and we're providing the reads to us.
Yeah, and I can tell you, that's what I didn't understand the first time it came around, so I'm glad that we've taken the time. So given that we have a contract in place now, and we're spending a certain amount of money, and this would be sort of upgraded service and all, an upgraded system, can you tell me how much we're spending now per year, how much this contract we would spend, and so we can look at the difference?
Right. So the numbers that we brought forward in terms of the price per year in reads, we bring forward $60 million over 10 years. So it's on average about $6 million, or slightly less probably now, probably a little bit more 10 years from now because we'll have more meters installed. And so it's a revenue neutral contract to the service provider. We came up with a new price that took into consideration the current prices. And today we pay up to $1.09 for some of our residential reads under the existing contract. In this new contract, all customers, regardless of whether they're residential or commercial, will be paying 98 cents, it's really 97.9 cents, I believe, per week, but we'll call it 98. So it'll be a little bit of a reduction in some areas, and most important, that reduction will also be applied to the more complex reads. So as we move more customers to optional services like time of use, that would cost significantly more today to do. So it would cost Austin Energy more to have a customer whose time of use under the current contract. In the future, it would be 98 cents.
So are you suggesting that this would be a better system for less money?
Yes. On a per unit basis, this is a better way to approach it. It's also
At
much
what
simpler.
cost?
So, it's quite complex to go through and make sure that we've got each rate for each different customer, each meter today. And when a customer moves to a new rate class, making sure our billing file also, and I'm talking about the billing file with our service provider, is also properly kept up to date. So it's going to be an opportunity for Austin Energy to have very predictable cost, regardless of how many customers want to get on an optional feature. We won't change the base rate cost really.
Because one of the, so this is, I think, needs to all be folded in, but one of the questions, one of the suggestions was how many folks really are going to be taking advantage of the more advanced functionality that will be available.